What is up, Chargers Nation, Los Angeles, Orange County? Welcome into LAFB Live with the baddest beard in Boltland, Stephen Haglund. Here we are in a palace of a hotel room, a 5-star resort, if you will, down in Newport Beach. What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I was initially going to stay at a Super 8. That's pretty close by to the facility, but glad I chose the Holiday Inn instead. Much nicer. Better Wi-Fi connection, I would assume. So what's up, everybody? Happy to be here. So happy to be back in camp talking football. Ryan said it best the other day, man. You know, July training camp, it's poetry in motion, really is.
Yeah, beautiful thing. Did you see when I was coming over here, before we get into it, there was an Abu Dhabi motel?
Yeah.
Did you see?
Yeah, it's like built in like the shape of like a
Taj Mahal. Yeah. You should have stayed there. It was right next to a Motel 6.
I did see it on Expedia. I think it had like a 1-star rating. So maybe next time we'll have that adventure.
Okay. That must have been why. But well, how are you? It's so good to first meet in person. We've been obviously talked to town. We've done so many virtual shows and stuff like that. But finally we get to hang out in person. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
But how was the drive down here? How is it being in Orange County? And then obviously we're gonna get to football camp, but just what's going on?
Yeah, the drive down was good. For those who don't know, I live in Fresno area, and so I was expecting hell because I left yesterday at like 3:30. But I happened to, I think, just catch the tail end of traffic. So it was good. It took me about 5 hours, which is pretty normal. Yeah, man. Obviously, good to meet you as well in person. I met my co-host for the Guilty as Charged podcast, Tyler, last week in person, and then today I met Arjun and we did a video with him. Met some other couple of Chargers fans in person today, which is fun. Which that's like the coolest thing about training camp, right? Yeah. Is like you get to meet all these people. Like obviously everybody knows Karen and Jen. They're like kind of
who we met on Wednesday. That was kind of cool. I just like all of a sudden I'm like at the gate or at the chain link fence, and I'm like, oh, look at you. Yeah, I know you're from Twitter. What's up?
Yeah, they become like the Twitter moms, and obviously it was a lot of fun meeting them. I got to meet Bolt Vox on Twitter today in person.
Oh, there you go.
So okay, it was a fun day. Great time being in camp. I was surprised at how hot it was, but it was great.
It was like literally 71, but with the way the sun reflects down, it feels like 100. So, it does. But we made it through. I don't think we got burned too bad. I think you look good.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, my farmer's tan is disgusting, but but yeah, man, happy to be here. Super pumped to be at day 3. It's been a long 3 days for me.
You've been busy.
I'm on the back end of the how many hours days, but it's been great being at Chargers camp in the morning, recording live in the afternoon, doing some writing, and then going to Rams camp and then doing live after last night. So I don't know if you knew this, but so I'm leaving Rams camp yesterday. And so I was just gonna combine the two yesterday. I'm gonna do my live reaction for Chargers and Rams when I get home.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving Rams camp in Irvine, and then the boss calls me, which is my wife. Says, we have dinner plans. I don't know if you remembered, but we had dinner plans, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, well, what she says goes. So we go, takes me 2 hours to get back through OC and LA traffic to Duarte to do this dinner thing with these friends. Great friends. It was good seeing him. By the time I got home, I literally was so exhausted. I bathed my daughter, and then I was putting her to sleep, and I knocked out right next to her. So
yeah, I believe it.
So yes, there was no live last night. So we're going to make up for that this time. But, as Chumbawamba said it best, you get knocked down, but I'm getting up again. Like a phoenix rising through the ashes. I feel great. And I'm ready to talk what happened in Chargers day 3. And then we can sprinkle in some day 2 since I didn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope everyone really appreciates, Ryan's effort, especially, the Rams fan, because it would definitely be easy to kind of just do Chargers and then, not cover the Rams as much. So appreciate your content, man. And, I know that LAFB fans are happy to have, some great Chargers and Rams content. And you and I have been working to get USC and UCLA, pumping up as well. So
that's right.
Really excited about where LAFB is trending. One of my good friends from the Bolt Beat days is going to be joining us for USC content. Yeah. Really excited about that one.
Yeah, he's going to be great. So thanks to you for that. Thank you for the kind words. Couldn't be more excited and proud of what we're doing. But Steven, let's get into day 3 of camp. So a lot of things happened. I think a lot of players we can touch on and talk about. But just so right off the top, kind of what was your biggest takeaway, I guess, whether it was a player, whether it was a style of drills, whether it was because I know you've been at camp before, but it was your first camp of 2021. So what was your biggest takeaway from it?
I think the biggest takeaway is Tyron Johnson's emergence. I think Yeah, let us know if you guys can hear us, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'm just reading some
looks
comments.
Like Kevin saw us today or something like that.
What up, Kevin? Should have said hi.
But I think the biggest place to start is Tyron Johnson, right? Because I think everybody is so curious to see how this wide receiver room pans out. Jalen Guyton obviously had 60 or 70 targets last year, has a really good relationship with Justin Herbert, and was a favorite of the previous coaching staff. And I think him and Tyron Johnson have been kind of splitting reps, but Tyron Johnson had 5 or 6 catches today. He had a couple screen passes, and then of course the deep bomb that everybody was talking about, which he would have been sacked in real life. Uchenna Nwosu would have got him in real life, but that's kind of the reality of training camp, is that Justin Herbert was able to kind of roll out. Theoretically, he could have made Nwosu miss and then just uncorked a deep bomb that probably traveled 50 yards in air.
It was in air. Yeah, I think I saw someone say it was actually like a 70+ touchdown.
So
from
just the way that he rolling to his right and then is able to uncork this 55, 60-yard pass is insane. But Tyron Johnson has a role, I think, in mind, or the coaches have a role in mind for Tyron Johnson. I think his usage is going to go up, and I think rightfully so. So someone's going to have to separate themselves from the pack. And right now, it seems like it's Tyron Johnson's job to lose.
No, I agree with you 100%. He's looked great. He's been one of the big winners of all 3 days so far. From what you saw just today, would you say as of right now he's wide receiver 3?
I think so. I'm not going to go as far. Some people were saying like, oh, maybe they cut Jalen Guyton. I think Jalen Guyton will still have a role. And he's a legitimate weapon. Like, I would, as weird as it is to say, like at this point we know more about Jalen Guyton than Joe Reed or KJ Hill.
Yeah.
So Guyton's going to have a role, but I just think Tyron just gives you something different, right?
Yeah.
Like he is able to take the top off like Jalen Guyton, but he's much quicker in person too, and in the short areas, So I think if there is going to be like a screen guy, end around guy, and also stretch the field, I think that's Tyron Johnson more so than it would be Jalen Guyton.
Yeah, and I think more importantly, a little better hands, a little better catching the football, which is kind of important when you're playing the receiver position. And it seems that Tyron Johnson does it a little better. But yeah, he's looked great. The footwork looks good there. And it'll be exciting to see if he is the wide receiver 3 heading into week 1. We got a lot of camp to go. Obviously, Josh Palmer's a guy me and you both love, and he's looked great too. So that's not to say he has looked bad. But I think as of now, Johnson would be the incumbent at the 3 spot.
I would agree with that too. And some people kind of took me pointing out Tyron Johnson's success as kind of a slight to Josh Palmer. And that's not a slight. Like, he's going to have a role too, and they'll work him in. And I do expect him to kind of push Tyron Johnson eventually, for some targets and things like that. But, Palmer's a rookie. Tyron Johnson has been in the NFL for 2 years now. We know a little bit more about him, and it's just been fun seeing him, kind of grow, because the talent has never been an issue. Like, he was a 5-star recruit for a reason.
Yeah.
It's just the putting things together. And I think we're finally seeing that come to fruition. And, I'm hoping for a big year for him.
Yeah. And it helps when you have a really good quarterback front of the football too.
Yeah.
It kind of helps you as a receiver exude your talent level. Yeah. But yeah, and Josh Palmer, I saw someone say about the computer's kind of far away, so excuse me, but talking about crisp routes. Yeah. Sweet feet on that Josh Palmer kid that I'm extremely excited to continue watching him develop as well. And he'll absolutely have a role. And I've said many times, I know we've talked on LFB Live, and I've said on your show, and when you've been on our show, that Staley plays the best player. He doesn't play favorites. Right. But when you're a rookie, you got to earn it still. He's not going to give it to you because you were a 3rd-round pick, a 2nd-round pick.
We're kind of seeing that with Asante Samuel Jr. now too.
There you go. That's a good segue. So Josh Palmer will get his looks, will get his opportunities, and will definitely have a role in this offense. But I think right now it's safe to say Tyron Johnson is your guy at 3. But moving over to Asante Samuel, who's been running with the 2s, and rightfully so. I think Brandon Faison's played well so far in camp. He is. We talked on day 1 recap how he's a physical corner that I think fits well in this system, and so he's going to get his shot to prove that. And he's looked good so far.
He has looked good so far. I think the biggest thing that I'm learning about Brandon Staley is that he likes to have variety. And so at this point, obviously, we don't really know much about Asante Samuel Jr. in terms of being on the field, but you have Michael Davis, who's more of your coverage guy. You have Chris Harris, who's more of your takeaway guy. And then you have Brandon Faison, who's more of your tackler, more physical in the run game, kind of presence. So I think you have three different, defined roles. I think Asante Samuel Jr. is probably a little bit of both in terms of being like Chris Harris and being like Michael Davis. So it gives you options, right? And Brandon Staley mentioned that in his press conference. They're trying to figure out where exactly to play Asante Samuel Jr. He has been rotating in with the ones at the slot at times. But for the most part, he's been outside with the second team, which, again, he's got to earn it. Like, it's totally different circumstances than Rashawn Slater. It's like no one's going to challenge Rashawn Slater for a starting job. You have some other options potentially with Asante Samuel Jr. who can push him to be better and push him to earn that role.
Yeah, and I said after day one that's a good thing. Like if Asante Samuel Jr. was the unquestioned starter as a second-round pick on day 1, day 2, day 3 of camp, that tells you a bigger problem about the depth on this team and the bigger problem about what is behind him. Whereas if he's having to fight and claw to get there, that shows they're in a really good spot in the secondary, or much better than we all thought.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you can look at other teams in the league, right? And specifically in the division, the Broncos have like 6 or 7 corners, the Raiders don't have any, but
yes,
except for Casey Hayward, which, that's going to be tough for them.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, the more cornerbacks, the better, right? And so if Faison is playing 20, 30 snaps a game and Samuel's playing 20, 30 snaps a game, and they can each kind of excel in their own roles, that's great for the Chargers. Obviously, you're drafting Asante Samuel Jr. to be, a potential cornerback 1 kind of player. But if he can play 20, 30 snaps and excel instead of playing 40, 50 snaps a game and kind of struggle a little bit, I think that's the option that I would take. I would rather 100%. See him excel in a smaller role than struggle in a larger role. Not saying that he will struggle, but, I think it makes sense for, a rookie cornerback to kind of, ease into his role instead of just taking his lumps.
Yeah, no, 100%. And so it'll be good to see his development. Chris Harris Jr. has talked about how he's going to play everywhere on the field. And we've talked a lot about too. In Staley's system, we're going to see these guys all over the place.
Yeah.
So do not be concerned about safety depth because it's DB depth. They are DBs and they play everywhere. And we saw it today. Chris Harris lined up a lot in safety. He played slot. Obviously, I think that'll still be his primary, but he was on the outside. He was at safety. What's just your thoughts on seeing him line up as a safety?
Well,
hasn't done it since rookie year.
Yeah, he hasn't done it for a long time because I think he played a little bit of safety at Kansas too. So he mentioned it today. It's going to be an adjustment for him. But if the Chargers can kind of turn Chris Harris into their version of Charles Woodson, I think that is great for everybody involved. If they can get 3-4 more years of Chris Harris and hopefully get a healthy, very good version of Chris Harris, which I know you think is going to happen this year, then that's obviously great. Again, that gives them more options. So if you're able to have Chris Harris play deep, you can kind of ease Alohi Gilman and Mark Webb into things a little bit more, which, I was definitely one of those people worried about the safety depth. But if Chris Harris is able to play back there and play well, then Derwin James can play in the box some more. He can play in the slot, and Nasir Adderley can play in the slot. And, that's what we saw today, right? There was a point when Alohi Gilman and Chris Harris were the 2 deep safeties.
Yeah.
And Nasir Adderley and Derwin James were guarding the slots.
Yeah.
Which I think is so much fun. Like, you have so many options with this group. So I think Brandon Staley, the evil genius that he is very excited about these things.
It's honestly, fun to watch. And you see that. And as fans, and not just fans, but media, you get so traditional and, okay, this guy's a box safety. This guy's a cover safety. This guy's this. They stay in their role. And then you see 4 safeties on the field all doing different things. Or they play, obviously, 3 safety sets a lot, which we'll see. But I think it's great for Chris. And I think it shows that they just want the best talent on the field. And they'll make it work and put them in a situation that hopefully will be best for the entire defense. And, there's going to be some growing pains and it's going to take time. I think Bosa said it yesterday in his presser that if it's an easy defense, that's not a good thing. So they haven't learned it all because it's going to take time to learn it all because it's a complex, good defense. And if you know it all by day 2, that means you probably run a pretty stale defense, which we've probably seen in the past.
Yes, I think it's going to be an adjustment for all of us, right? Like being used to Gus Bradley's defense. And, we've talked ad nauseum about how bad he was. But, you have Nasir Adderley, who you expect to be this one thing in Gus Bradley's defense. You have Kaiser White, who you expect to be this one specific thing in Gus Bradley's defense. That's going to be completely different. Like, I saw Kaiser White playing in the slot a little bit today.
We'll get to him
today. Yeah, we'll get to Kaiser. So, I mean, we've all been hearing that this defense has a lot of moving parts, but I think when you watch it in person, it's it really is like next level in terms of, complex defensive schemes. And they were doing a lot of base 3-4 stuff today. And it's still like, there's so much moving parts. You really don't really have a grasp until you really see it in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Sticking with the safeties before we move on, and we'll get to Kaiser because he looked great. Kevin asked, was it just me or was Alohi really meh? What do you think of Alohi?
I feel like Alohi was mid last year too. I mean, he only played in the last 2 games, but I wasn't the biggest fan of that draft pick. And a lot of what we heard last year was, well, he's going to be like our version of Adrian Phillips, where kind of a long-term project, special teams guy. And then this year, it's like, well, he might be the 3rd safety on the roster. So I'm definitely concerned about how much he is going to have to play. And I guess concern isn't really that's not the right word, I guess, is intrigued, because I personally I'm more comfortable at this point playing Mark Webb than I am Alohi Gilman or Chris Harris playing safety. But and Mark Webb had an interception yesterday. So
yeah, sure did.
I'm definitely concerned about Alohi Gilman's role with this team.
Yeah, it'll be. Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly how he fits, but they're getting him out there, at least getting him some reps.
Yeah.
And seeing how he fits with these ones, and then Asante Samuel we'll see in the back end too, and then obviously Mark Webb will get more reps as training camp goes on, learning the system and whatnot. Yeah. So, I think it's just a good DB group. Mike Davis, how tall is he in person?
Dude,
Vato is tall in person.
Like I was telling it, I forget the guy's name next to me. He wasn't with us, but I was telling him about the first time I went to an NFL game in the soccer stadium, which whatever you want to call it, StubHub, whatever.
The dig.
The first game that I went to there was Chargers versus Ravens, that Saturday night game. And my wife and I got there early, and you're just like blown away by the size of these players sometimes. That day, like Hayden Hurst seemed like a giant.
Oh yeah.
And we said several times today, like Donald Parham, like there's no way he's 6'8". Like he's towering over even Jared Cook, and I think he's a few inches taller than Justin Herbert. So the size of these players, man, is just crazy.
Yeah, it's phony to me, and they're not even in pads. So when they get pads, they look even bigger. But Jake, what's up?
Jake, we're at the Holiday Inn close to Newport. That's where I'm staying at. That's where Ryan wanted to come and record. So
it's okay. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express last night, and that's how it goes.
Saw a question too about Mike Williams.
Yes. Okay. Let's get back. Okay. Yeah. We'll go back to offense then. So about Mike Williams, I think it just said, how has he been looking so far? Yeah. King J 17. What up? Mike Williams is an interesting guy. I never want to slander any players, and he's not a bad player.
He has things he does very well.
Yes. He uses his size and his catch radius to his advantage.
It definitely is concerning at how little he has progressed as a route runner.
Yeah.
And the wide receivers, when you go to practice, they're always right in front of you. And we made the comment in terms of like drills and like hip fluidity and their footwork, like Mike Williams is probably like 6th or 7th in terms of like
maybe the worst.
He might be the worst in the group in terms of like how he looks with all these wide receiver drills. And again, like you don't have to be great at those things to be a very good receiver and excel at the things that he does. But he looked like, I've been coming to training camp, since 2018, and I haven't really seen him make any progress in that regard. And I'm not asking him to suddenly become, Wes Welker in terms of quickness, but it just is kind of concerning to me that he hasn't really made progress in the little things of playing the position.
Yeah. I mean, the footwork drills are, a lot of it, and I never want to question this. So I almost don't even want to say it because people may take it out of context, but sometimes it looks like in those drills, it's almost like a lackadaisical, almost like lack of effort. Like he's just kind of like jogging his footwork, where you see Keenan go and you see Josh Palmer going, and it's like, and his is just like, do. Okay. Let me turn here, catch the ball. So, I mean, they're individual drills. Take it for what you will. The guy can obviously go up and get it. That hasn't changed. But even in 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s, he hasn't been targeted. So I know today you were just here today, but I've been here all 3 days, and I'm trying to remember. I can't remember a catch.
Someone pointed out he did have a catch on Wednesday. I think he had 1 target today.
Yeah.
But today kind of seemed more of like a tight end day in general, which we can definitely talk about.
Yeah.
But we hear all this talk in the spring of like, oh, he's going to be Michael Thomas, and oh, he's going to put up huge numbers. And it's like, if he hasn't evolved as a route runner, how is he going to have a Michael Thomas role? because right now it just looks like he's going to be the same kind of shallow crossers, deep go routes, deep post routes. And it does take some people longer to get going, but I don't know, man. Like I just have been hearing like, oh, he's improved as a route runner. He's improved as a route runner. It's like, I'm not really seeing that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely not seeing that. And, it could be one of those things too, where they know what they have in him in 11. So they prefer or push to target other receivers and see what they have. Yeah. I don't think coaches really do that because they just want to see a successful play. They're like, oh, make sure to hit your fourth option here because I know what Keenan Allen can do. Yeah. I want to see you, actually be successful. But maybe there's a little bit of that where they're pushing that. But yeah, in terms of route running, in terms of just individual work, they were doing a jam drill where, the coaches has the body gloves on and they're trying to jam, and he just looks like awkward doing that, even like trying to get by. And so,
I mean, like I said, this is not to just bag on Mike Williams, right? Like, because he can still have a role.
Totally.
He's been successful.
Totally.
It's just kind of been a health thing, really. But I just, they're paying him $15 million this year. And it's just hard for me to look at that and be like, okay, like I'm cool with a couple jump balls a game from a guy who's making $15 million a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's the big thing, the contract. Like if he was making like 7 or 8, then like, cool, do you? Yeah. I could care less about route running. Like, sure, give me 49, 50 balls a year. But yeah, when you're making 15 million, you need to do a little more than that. You need to be touching that 100 catches a year, which I just don't think his repertoire right now.
And that's
garners that.
The other thing too is that now they have Josh Palmer, who can be a jump ball guy. Tyron Johnson made a great catch today in a jump ball situation.
Yeah.
Donald Parham is 6'9", can do the same thing. And Jared Cook now too. So it's like, on the previous offenses, it was like, okay, Mike Williams is the jump ball guy. Now they have other guys who can do that. So I just wish that we could see more variety from him, but it doesn't really seem like that's going to be the case, which is unfortunate.
And hopefully we'll see throughout the rest of the camp that him make that realization, and he probably has already.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, there's guys that can do what I do, and hopefully it pushes him. Because I mean, the best thing we want for this whole Chargers team is competition, because it breeds excellence. Iron sharpens iron. And when you have these guys and you have a rookie like Josh Palmer, who I've tweeted a bunch, like him in the drills, so smooth, like sweet boom, feet, boom, boom, boom. Quick. Like he is almost a combination of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams.
He really is.
You have Keenan Allen's route running and feet ability, and then he has Mike Williams' catch radius and go up and get it ability. Chargers fans need to be really excited about him. And again, we've talked about Tyron Johnson, who right now is probably the 3, but Palmer's looked great. I mean, he hasn't done anything to hurt himself. He had 2 big catches in the 11 drills on Wednesday, had a couple on Thursday. I don't think he got any catches today that I can think of in their red zone work.
No, I mean, they did like the individual
but he wasn't targeted.
Stuff, but in 7-on-7 and 11-on-11, I don't think I saw him get a target.
Yeah, I don't think he was targeted. But so let's transition then, because you said it was kind of a tight end heavy day almost.
Yeah.
They ran a lot of like 2 tight end sets we saw.
Right.
For those that don't know, we didn't really say this, but most of the drills were actually red zone work when they were team sessions. Yeah. What did you think of the tight ends?
Oh, man. Oh, I'm so excited for this tight end group. I think a lot of people were concerned about Hunter Henry leaving, and rightfully so. He's very solid. You know what you're getting with Hunter Henry, but I think this tight end group just has so much more juice. And, Jared Cook in year 13 still is running like he's, 27, 28. And
that's crazy. He's in his 13th year.
I know. It's wild.
Yeah.
And him and Justin Herbert already have a very solid connection, which is very exciting. And like the second, or it might've been the third play of the 7-on-7s, or maybe it was 11-on-11s. I can't remember, but it was like the third play in, and they motioned Parham to the left. So they had Parham and Cook on the same side. And Parham ran a seam route. Jared Cook ran an out route. And Herbert just lasered a ball over the middle to Parham for the touchdown.
Beautiful.
And then like 3 plays later, they ran a similar action, except instead of doing the out route, Cook did a wheel route. And it was kind of a back shoulder fade. And Cook jumped. He leapt up and high pointed the ball. And it was just like you could see the juice in the red zone from those two in particular. And it's just really exciting because the red zone has been such an issue for the Chargers, really, for the last 4 or 5 years. And now they just have, again, coming back to this, you have so many options down there that it's just exciting. And, if maybe they lose a little bit in terms of like receptions from the tight end position, but I think between Parham and Cook, you could be looking at like 12 touchdowns between the two of them. Which
is easy.
So exciting.
Easy. We'll have to get a prop bet up on Play Pickup, one of our partners, and see what the over under is for the combined. But yeah, no, you alluded to it great. And I was never as hard on Shane Steichen as a play caller as others, but obviously he had his deficiencies. And I think one of those was creativity, especially in the red zone.
Yeah.
And just in those few little sessions, and let's be real too. There was, when the ones were going in the very beginning, they were, I think, were 2 for 6. The defense actually balled out. Brandon Faison had 2 PBUs. He looked good. But the play calling, the designs, there was at least the creativity there.
Yes.
Having the 2 tight end sets, like using your size to your advantage, which is like, if you have guys that size, use them to your advantage. Like,
yeah, that was my biggest thing with Steichen. And maybe in the future he can become that guy, but it was always like, okay, we're in the red zone, so we're going to run a halfback toss or a halfback dive, or we're just going to throw it to Keenan, have him do an option route. So they just have so many more options this year. And like I mentioned, this tight end group just has so much juice. And yesterday, Jared Cook had a 50-yard touchdown. Today, they both have great plays in the red zone. And for those who are, wondering, Trey McKitty's still rotating in with the ones, who I'm personally really excited about.
Yeah, he's looked fine. He's just carving out a role.
Yeah, he just hasn't, been as heavily involved and targeted because, him and Justin are still trying to connect a little bit. But I love seeing him in there with the ones. That's obviously notable. And I do expect him to be kind of like the blocking tight end for this team. So he'll have a role too. And it's going to be tight end by committee, but I'm really excited about the committee.
Yeah, well, that's I'm glad you said that, because it'll definitely be, we'll see a heavy dosage of all 3 of these guys. And before we move on from tight ends, even, Camp Moyer was targeted a lot. I think you tweeted it out by the 2s and 3 quarterbacks. The prospect out of Oregon that was the undrafted free agent. He's looked fairly good too. I think me and you both think he has a really good shot to make this team, even with the great depth they have as their 3 tight ends, but because of his versatility, he has a good shot.
They have some tough decisions, and Joe Lombardi alluded to this yesterday, because I think Steven Anderson can make this team too. Like, Steven Anderson, really good yards after the catch guy, again, gives them something a little bit different than what they have in the other guys. And, Hunter Kampmoyer, he was targeted 4 times today, I think, by the backup quarterback. So they definitely are kind of focusing in on him. And he dropped one, unfortunately, which was Easton Stick's best pass of the day. But I mean, he was involved. He looked good after the catch. I'm really excited to see them get pads on, because I want to see who really separates themselves as a blocker. But I mean, even Gabe Neighbors, they moved him into inline to the tight end as an H-back out wide. I mean, he's a fullback technically, but this group of tight ends is exciting, very unproven, but very excited about the possibilities with this group.
Yeah. And a lot of potential, and within this system, they're going to do a lot of things with them. And then you pair that with the receivers, and let's do running backs before we jump over back to the defense. The running backs have been interesting to try to evaluate so far in camp, because obviously Justin Jackson missed, the first day, but then he's been back now. He was definitely the kind of unquestioned number 2, I thought it looked like, but did he have 2 drops or 3 drops? I mean, he had a couple drops out of the backfield.
A couple passes today, which is really surprising, because he's been so
usually pretty sure-handed. Yeah.
And yesterday, Joe Lombardi said, he was talking about Austin Eckler, about how well-rounded Austin Eckler is. And then he was like, I feel that same way about Justin Jackson. So maybe he's got some after effects from testing positive, or I don't know what the situation is there, but I think Justin Jackson's going to be the RB2 for this team. I just feel more comfortable with him at this point. But I really like Larry Roundtree, and I know a lot of people were kind of sour at that pick. He's very similar to Joshua Kelly, and that is true. But I really like Larry Roundtree, guys, and I think he's going to carve out a role for this team beyond just being a goal line back. I think he could be someone that this team can use legitimately.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love Roundtree, but I'm one of the few, but I'm still a believer in Joshua Kelly. So we'll see if he can. He's looked good so far in camp and what he's had to do. But yeah, it's the running backs, all 4 plus the 5th, and I'm all of a sudden now drawing Bradwell. Excuse me. Yeah. He looks like a barn. He looks like a barn. That's why I said Barnwell. But it's been a very heavy rotation with all of them. So it's really hard, especially when Justin Jackson was out. There was times, Austin Eckler was running with the 3s. They were really trying to move these guys around and see who's going to really stick as that RB2, RB3, if they keep 4, if they only keep 3.
Yeah. And it definitely seems like they're comfortable with where Eckler's at. And so they're trying to put the other guys in other situations. So I think that's exciting. I think those 3 players will have to get sorted out, but Joshua Kelly, he's got some things to prove. Like he's got to be able to prove that he can overcome adversity. And he mentioned that on the first day to a reporter that, that was kind of his big takeaway. But really, until these guys get into pads, that's when the running backs will start separating, because
Totally.
like we've said, it's so hard for offensive linemen to block without pads. So there really is like no running room. And all these guys will get, 2-3 yards past the line of scrimmage. And there's Kenneth Murray. There's Joey Bosa. There's Derwin James. Like there's no running room, because, these linemen are just having such a hard time blocking without pads on, which is to be expected. That's not a slight as a former offensive lineman. That's just the way football is. Like you got to get pads on for linemen to be able to block.
Yeah. So let me ask, or let's talk about that quickly then. So I saw someone say a while back, not during this live stream, but someone asked like, "Oh, I heard the offensive line is like not looking good or something."
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're not in pads, like imagine trying to block someone that's just wearing a t-shirt and you're just going to slip right off them. Like it's not true. It's not true to what you're trying to do. So, offensive line and individual work looks fine. I know that the coaching staff is fine. They all look big. They look strong, conditioned.
Yeah.
And, they're basically the thing you want to see in camp without pads on is, are your guys going to the right spot? So if you're pulling guards,
it's all about technique.
Yeah. Whatever technique you're doing, are they getting the right spot? Whether there's 3 linebackers or a defender right there right away, making the quote unquote tackle, we're not worried about that. We just want to make sure the guys are in the right spot and no one's missing their assignment.
Honestly, my biggest takeaway from the offensive line today was Matt Filer is huge.
He's massive.
He's like a good 3 inches taller than Rashawn Slater.
He's the biggest guy on the line for sure.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
So,
I would not have guessed that.
I would not have guessed that either. So
I saw that day one. I'm like, that's not Filer. Like, no, I mean, no wonder he's a swing tackle, but playing guard, he can clearly play all. But he's a lot bigger than Slater, which I was surprised.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. I know Brandon Staley mentioned that they wanted to get bigger up front than they used to be, but it's like you never see your left guard be the tallest guy on the line. Like, and he's taller than Brian Bulaga is too. So,
and Ibushi's big too.
Yeah.
Ode Ibushi's out there. So all the hog mollies are the ones signing autographs today. You had to scamper. I know you had to scamper away early. The hog mollies though were up. They were the one signing autographs.
Oh man, I missed it.
Yeah, you would have been a kid in a candy store up there.
But I mean, they looked like they were going in the right directions, and you love seeing like the kind of instruction that Frank Smith and Sean Surratt are able to kind of give them. I mean, it looks fine right now. Like this is, if everybody else right now, obviously like the wide receivers, its installation is probably closer to like 100%, but O-line installation right now is at like barely 15-20% tops.
Yeah, you're stacking the bottom bricks right now.
Yeah.
So, but hey, big thing, no fumbled snaps.
Yeah.
That's a good sign right there.
And I will say,
Corey
like,
Linsley and
the
Justin
communication the communication between Linsley and Herbert has been really fun to see. I think that aspect is going to be huge for Herbert too, because Linsley can set everything on the protections. Linsley knows everything that's happening. He's so smart and really can kind of just take another thing off of Herbert's plate. Not that Herbert needs it, right? Another smart guy.
Yeah.
But just really excited to see how Linsley helps Justin Herbert in that regard.
Yeah. A lot of smart guys out there. So,
Kevin said he almost got a Norton signed ball.
Storm. That's a good one. That's a keeper. Played in multiple leagues. All right. Well, let's two things we'll end on. Let's first talk about Kaiser White.
You have to,
because the dude balled out. I mean, he as of now, guys, he is basically he's running with the ones with Kenneth Murray. So it's not Drew Tranquil. They're gonna have a rotation for sure. Yeah. But right now is a heavy dosage of Kenneth Murray and Kaiser White. And as of today, he absolutely earned it. Obviously picked off a pass from Easton Stick, but he was everywhere, all over the place. Looks fast, looks fluid. He can be your classic side to sideline, but he's smart. I think was he calling the plays too?
Yes. Yeah.
So Kaiser, he was doing a little everything.
Today, yeah. Was Tranquil more active in the first couple days?
I feel like it's been mostly Kaiser. I didn't notice Tranquil that much. Yeah.
That's obviously, really important because a lot of people have kind of assumed that it's going to be Tranquil.
Yeah, that's been the assumption. Yeah.
I don't know. Like that's going to be very interesting to watch because I was expecting them to kind of, rotate back and forth, but Kaiser, he looks so good. And last year I just felt like he was just close. Like, whether it be in coverage or like, it just felt like he wasn't fully back to himself.
Yeah.
But he was still able to make some plays and have a very good year. But he looks so explosive today. And I mean, he had 2 pass breakups. He had that interception, which is obviously on social media. And it's not like he's doing this like, it's not like he's walking right into these plays. Like, he's going out and he's making the right reads and he's flying to the football. And I just love the balance between Kaiser and Murray.
Yeah.
Because I think Kaiser is a little bit of a better athlete than Tranquil, but he's not like the physical downhill guy that Murray is. But you have that kind of balance between like a coverage guy and a downhill physical guy. But man, Kaiser was making plays all over the field. He had a deep pass breakup. He had a short pass breakup. He had the out route that he undercut from Jason Moore for the interception. He was everywhere today.
Yeah, and what's great about Kaiser with his size and speed is obviously in most situations when you have an elite tight end, you're going to want Derwin on him. But Kaiser can live up to that task if needed. Yeah. I don't think that's the situation they necessarily want, but if Derwin's off the field for whatever reason or any mismatches, he can do it because of his size and speed.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that I think surprised me today, though, is that when the Chargers did go to the dime package, it was Murray on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it's necessarily surprising, but in my head, like when I think of like a dime package and the linebacker, you want the coverage guy there.
Yeah.
But Murray is the one who stays. So,
yeah.
We'll
and that could be too, that he's more of like a QB spy in that situation because of his speed and his area availability to get back. But I mean, Kaiser's fast too. But also the last thing I want to say about that is, and again, I hope people don't get annoyed, but I draw a lot of comparisons for the Rams last year, but you have to. That's where Brandon Staley was.
Yeah.
Their three linebackers played Micah Kaiser was like kind of the unquestioned guy last year, but between him, Kenny Young, and Troy Reeder, they were all on the field, like rotating all the time. Every game they got plays. Some games Troy Reeder played more. Obviously, there was some injury stuff too, but there were some games where a certain player played more because they fit better in that against that specific offense. Like Troy Reeder was, maybe better against the run or maybe better rushing the quarterback or whatnot.
Yeah.
So just because Kaiser White and Kenneth Murray are your starters does not mean Drew Tranquil will not see the field.
Yeah.
Because he has a certain skill set that he brings that I know Brandon Staley will definitely try to put out there and use.
Yeah, I think all three will have a role, right? I think Tranquil does bring enough good things, and they've all the coaches have talked about how smart he is and how good of a communicator he is. So maybe they're just trying to get a bigger evaluation of Kaiser at this point.
It's been a good one.
It's been a very good one so far.
Fans should be excited because I think when they got him, it was like that versatility people were excited about.
Yeah.
And then, in Gus Bradley's defense, you just don't really see versatility shine.
No.
So
what was really weird about what happened with him and Gus Bradley's defense is that, he was like in the middle of things during his rookie year, and then he gets hurt. And then when he comes back, then he's more of like the auto role, which is like kind of a hybrid between like I'm on the line of scrimmage and I'm back. So I just didn't really feel like that fit him very well. Obviously, after Drew Tranquil got hurt, then he was kind of again in the middle, but very excited about him. And Murray looks great too, man. Like Murray is
K9
flying around, and he's so much bigger in person. Again, like one of these players, he's so much bigger in person than you think. And every time that there's a run play, Murray is right there.
Yeah.
So
he's
really
in the thick of it every time.
The blend between the two of them is going to be really exciting to watch.
Yeah, this defense on a whole is really exciting. So, last thing I want to, unless there's something else you want to bring up, we can end with that. But last thing I want to talk about, and you're probably sick of me talking about him, but I got to give a shout out to Austin Prohl because the dude is.
Love that guy.
I'm loving him. He's killing it. I talked about him in day one. To me, he's the unquestioned returner right now. Today they didn't do any punts; they did all kick return, but he caught pretty much every kick return.
Yeah,
Guyton caught a few, but most 90% of the reps was Austin Prohl. I brought it up in my article yesterday that yes, he's not going to be one of your starting receivers, but he's good enough. He can play a slot role if they need to. It's not like a liability to have him on the team just to do kickoff stuff. He can actually play receiver if needed. And to me, he is the unquestioned return guy right now.
Yeah, like what kind of sucked today specifically is that Tyron Johnson, each of the times that he was about to go line up, the ball went too far. So then
That's
a
true.
coach would just have to throw the ball to him. So that was a little annoying. I would have loved to see the kickers actually kick off today. So they just had the jugs machine, pop the ball up. But Prohl was definitely the one who received the most reps. Yesterday, Daniel Popper said KJ Hill was returning kicks as well. So, I mean, that would be nice if he could kind of continue that. But today was only Prohl, Guyton, and Johnson. And apparently on the first day, he did all the punt return stuff too. So, I mean, it makes sense. Like he's got the most experience as a return man on this team. Joe Reed weirdly not back there today either. So, that's, kind of a disappointing one.
Yeah.
If it's Austin Prohl, man, it's great. Like the Chargers need a good returner. And if that's Prohl, fantastic. I don't really have a preference. I think the drop off between him as a receiver and say Joe Reed and the potential of Joe Reed is pretty significant in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of frustrating, like looking at a guy who's going to be arguably the best returner, and he's okay as a receiver in my opinion, but you're not having a terrible receiver out there. I just wish that one of the better players on the team could kind of establish themselves as that return man, because even with Desmond King, like that's Desmond King, like he's a starting caliber player and returning punts and doing it well. This year Adderley, but I would be kind of worried about him playing a huge role in terms of returning kicks and punts. But I just kind of wish that it was like a better player winning this battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Kevin did mention though, Prohl did get that touchdown from Daniel, got his feet in the corner right there on that one team drill. So I don't know. I'm high on Prohl. Maybe it's just the fact that he's the son of Super Bowl champ Ricky Prohl from the Rams.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Maybe it's the fact that he was an XFL star with the Seattle Dragons. We saw him do great things there. But to me, he exudes the most confidence in the return game, which we haven't had for the Chargers for a long time. And I just think he can do things on offense that, you don't really ask your sixth receiver to do much anyway, but I agree with you. Joe Reed is so interesting because we saw what he did at Virginia. We saw what the coaching staff said last year, comparing him to like Percy Harvin.
He's like has the highest yards per kick return like ever in college football.
Yeah, but then not even doing them in training camp. So his role is very odd. And I don't know if that's this regime really wanting him to focus on receiving, if they really see him as maybe a really potent receiver, or if he's just been beat out by the other guys. I don't really know. It's an interesting one to watch for sure.
Yeah. I think like obviously there's a lot of things that people could be bugged about from last year, but the Joe Reed thing, and just like it really irritates me because now like he should have been playing last year.
Yeah.
And he gets a couple end arounds and he scores a touchdown, and then we just heard nothing. And
he even scratched some games.
He was in a healthy scratch most of the time. And so now this coaching staff, it's a brand new coaching staff, right? So they have no idea in terms of film, like what to expect from this guy. So, and they spent a 5th round pick on him, and it's just going to be probably a waste. Like unfortunately, he's probably going to be cut in a few weeks. Like that, it sucks. But if he's not a return man, I don't see how he makes this roster.
Yeah. So, okay, let's end it with that then. Unless you have it. Is there any players you want to bring up or anything?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Okay. So let's end with that. And I'm going to put you on the spot. We're 3 days in the camp, guys. But, that's our role. We sit here and do hot takes. I drink cold beer and give hot takes. That's what I've been saying all week.
Well, in this case, warm beer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, this has been sitting Brewery X, Battle Snack Pilsner. Check it out. But this has been sitting in my trunk all day. So it is like, it's not even warm. It's basically hot beer.
Oh.
But I'm almost done with it. So, maybe that means I have a problem. So putting you on the spot. 3 days into camp. So we have a lot of camp to go. But who are your 6 receivers? Just because we're ending with that, talking about them.
Yeah, so obviously Keenan Allen, Mike Williams.
I'm assuming, sorry to cut you off, but I'm assuming I think they'll keep 6.
I think they'll keep 6 as well. Because again, like you have to have a return man. And so apparently Larry Roundtree worked as a kick returner yesterday, but in terms of punt returners, it's all the receivers. It's either KJ Hill, Austin Prohl, or Guyton or Johnson. Like we haven't seen anybody else do punt returns.
Yeah.
So
in 3 days in, no, just those 4.
So obviously, I think Keenan. We can all say that Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Josh Palmer,
Keenan makes the team.
They're all safe, right? And I think you can say that at this point. I think Tyron Johnson.
I think so. Yeah,
I think Tyron Johnson is making it. I'd be pretty shocked if they cut him.
Yeah, so that's 4. Those last 2 are tough.
I mean, I think you can make an argument to keep Joe Reed instead of Jalen Guyton. I think, again, that gives you a little something different. But I think you can't discount the connection between Guyton and Herbert that they have. And so I think it's going to be Guyton. And then the last one right now, I think it's Austin Prohl. Like I don't like I can't see a world where they keep Joe Reed when he's not a return man.
Yeah.
I think for Joe Reed to make the roster, like he has to be making an impact as a returner. And he's not even getting reps right now. And KJ Hill, like I think he's okay as a returner.
He's had a bad camp though, as a receiver
He has. He had a drop today. That was the other thing. Like he's struggling with the playbook, it seems like too, because like he was blocking on a pass play And then there was another time where he ran into, I think, Gabe Neighbors in a route.
Yeah.
So KJ's having a tough day. Apparently, he had a couple of nice catches yesterday, according to Daniel Popper. Again, I wasn't there, but I think right now, like you've got to pencil in Austin Proehl because he is the best return man. Like, so when you say like confidence as a returner, like explain what that is, because I think a lot of people would be curious to hear, like, how are you confident as a return man?
Yeah. So when you return, I was a punt returner in high school. I wouldn't say a very good one, but I was one. But you can tell when you're watching a return man, more so in punts. Kickoffs are a lot easier to track, but watch how they track the ball. So if you see guys continually shifting their feet, going one way and then second guessing, going back, that's one way to see. So usually when a great punt returner tracks that ball and is immediately, like, obviously you'll make a few adjustments, but usually pretty under it, whereas some guys are back and forth, back and forth. The second thing is when the ball gets within the catch radius, within like a 5-foot radius, how is their base to their shoulders? You see some guys catching the ball over here,
which is what Guyton does.
Yeah, some guys trying to catch it with their hands like above their head. Yeah. You never want to see that. You want to have the ball landing literally like perfectly in your base in the breadbasket. Austin Proehl does all of those things. And again, it's practice is 3 days in, but all those things he's done perfectly. The breadbasket's been great. Guyton's been all over the place. KJ Hill's been all over the place. Tyron Johnson hasn't been bad, but if he's going to be your wide receiver 3, we won't need him returning kicks anyway. Right. And then we haven't seen Joe Reed do it. So at this point, Austin Proehl looks great, and that's what I mean about the confidence that he exudes, that you can see he feels confident, and then me watching, I'm like, I'm not losing, my food thinking this guy's going to drop the ball every time, and he hasn't dropped any yet. So
yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see it like pan out in a preseason game, because right now, like, all we can tell is like who's catching it better, and that's Austin Proehl. Like, Austin Proehl seems like the most comfortable punt returner, at least, and he's getting the most reps. Like, that's the thing that we have to pay attention to in terms of like making these roster predictions, is like who's getting reps, because that is how you're going to tell, right? Like, you're not going to predict Emeka Egbule to make the roster if he's not getting reps. And I didn't really see a whole lot of him, but in terms of
great pronunciation, by the way.
Thank you.
That's well done.
Worked on that one.
Yeah.
But so you've got to see these players get the reps until you see them in a preseason game. And so right now, Austin Proehl is getting the most reps at punt returner, and he's getting the most reps at kick returner, and he looks the best doing it. So until we see KJ Hill, take some steps forward as a receiver, we just don't know enough about Hill and Reed at this point to confidently say they're going to make the roster. And, if Proehl's role as a kick returner and punt returner, great. Yeah.
And I really love what Joe Reed's skill set brings. So I'm really rooting for him. I hope so. We haven't, I trying to think if he's had a catch yet in camp. Like, he looks good in individuals, but I haven't seen him targeted yet.
Yeah. We talked today, like when he was doing the individual stuff, like he looks good. He looks fluid, obviously not like Palmer or Keenan Allen, but he looks like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And when he was drafted, obviously we all know about, Anthony Lynn's roots in the Shanahan system. And so we were like, oh, like, he's going to be the end around guy. Like, he's going to be the
like Deebo Samuel kind of guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Deebo Samuel guy. And now he is probably not making a roster, which it sucks, because there is such a need in this Shanahan system, which, we know that the passing offense is going to be mostly West Coast stuff, but, you bring in Shane Day, you bring in Frank Smith, you bring in, I forget the tight end coach's name from Green Bay, but you have that Shanahan influence still. And so I would really love to see somebody like a Deebo Samuel, and Joe Reed is really the only guy on the roster that can kind of replicate that thing.
Yeah.
Again, Deebo Samuel's insane, but Joe Reed has a similar skill set. And so it just, again, it sucks. Like, if he would have played more last year, I think we would be able to say like, hey, like, he can make the roster. But right now, I don't see a way that he makes it.
Yeah. It's going to be an uphill climb for sure. But you will be at camp again tomorrow.
I thought that was a fifth.
Well, we can do that. Yeah. I was just gonna go like this, but that works. You'll be at camp again tomorrow. So keep it with Steven. I will not be there. I have other work stuff I have to do, and my wife would probably kill me 4 days in a row. But Steven will be there tomorrow. So make sure to tune in to, you can follow at Steven I. Haglin. You can follow is it just GAC?
GC Podcast 17.
GAC Podcast 17, or at LAFB Network. All of those accounts will give you updates all throughout camp. My friend, this has been fun.
It has been fun.
I gotta do this real quick, Jake, because I really want to make this. You need to make a shirt with the logo Cold Beer and Hot Takes.
There we go.
I think I need to make that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's my lifestyle, bro.
There we go.
That's how I'm doing. Cold beer and hot takes, or in this case, hot beer and hot
We can
takes.
get Brewery X to give you a nice little logo or something on the back.
Yeah,
I love their little snake logo. That's pretty cool.
I mean, I hate snakes, but it's kind of cool.
You hate snakes?
I hate snakes. Wait, you like snakes?
I mean, I don't like snakes, but no one likes snakes. But I think, like, in terms of like
Steve Irwin likes
logos,
snakes.
well, yeah, R.I.P. But in terms of logos, like, I think snakes are really cool. Like, I don't know if you want to show people the logo right here, but it's nice. It looks like a nice, clean logo.
A little like Diamondback or something, but yeah, shout out Brewery X, Battle Snakes Pilsner. That's like, honestly, like, we'll end it with this, but if I have a biggest fear in the world, it's snakes. I'm terrified of snakes. So, all right, story time quick. Sorry, guys. You bear with, whatever. You can tune out. That's the end of the Chargers talk. You guys can tune out if you want, but I used to paintball as a kid in high school. In middle school and high school, not really high school, more middle school, I used to paintball. My buddy lived pretty close to me, but they were like randomly on top of this hill on like 50 acres of like private land.
Yeah.
So we'd always just go there. Paintball was free, but it was in like kind of a desert terrain, if you will. So we're paintballing one day. It's all these like rock formation stuff, awesome layout. And I'm like hiding behind this rock, kneeling down. And I look down and I'm literally kneeling on a rattlesnake.
Oh my God.
So I wasn't kneeling like for a long time, but I kneel down and all of a sudden I hear the rattle stand up and there's a freaking rattlesnake right there.
Oh my God.
So I think I've never liked snakes, but ever since that moment, I've just been freaking terrified.
Yeah,
and I'm like, even a garter snake, if I find that, I'm like, get that shit away from me because I'm going to freak out.
No, I definitely am not like, oh, like, look, a snake, super cool. But in terms of like logos, that's all I was saying.
Yes, good logo. You're right about that. So, all right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Great Chargers camp. 3 days in so far. A lot of things to be excited about for this Los Angeles Chargers team. Again, you can follow Steven at Steven I. Haglin. Follow myself at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB. The main account is at LAFB Network. For those of you that have interest, or if there's any Rams fans that snuck in here, I'll be doing a Rams live update tonight after Rams camp. So we'll be doing that as well. Yeah, you know, just grinding it out. So
yeah.
All right, brother. Appreciate you.
Bye, guys.
We can do the fist bump now. There it is.
One.
So have a great camp tomorrow. I'm excited to see all your coverage.